move on. I'm going to play you a video.
All right.
And let's preface it this way. On Monday. I went to see a screening. It's Emmy season, which is screening of Lawmen Bass Reeves from Paramount Plus. It's a story of Bass Reeves, the famous. I think he's a bounty hunter. He becomes a U.S. Marshal just after the Civil War. True story. Stars David Oyelowo, and I go to the screening. He's there. They have a Q&A afterwards, and I found an interesting discussion he had during that Q&A, and I want to bring it up because it's about representation,
Okay.
the idea of seeing yourself on the screen, and he gives an interesting comment about it. I may have to elaborate on it a little bit, but the question here, I believe, was. Uh, uh, Basically, it was he talked about when the series premiered, before the series premiered. He was driving down in LA, down Sunset Boulevard, and he saw a giant billboard of himself, a black man riding a horse, and he just kind of wept. The fact that A, it was him up there, and B, that he was being represented. And so I'm going to let me pull this up here. Again, Chris hates it when I talk and narrate the actions that I'm doing because I haven't set this up well. It's going to look weird on this. I'm doing it from my cloud drive, so let's see. Okay, I think we can hear it. Here we go.
So that is kind of extraordinary, but also the reaction that the show has garnered. As a black actor, my experience has been that the work I have done, probably about 9 out of 10 people who come up to me in the street are going to be black. Because we all go to the movies or we watch TV shows to see ourselves reflected back to us. I truly believe that. Most people of color, especially, of a certain generation, have had to do that through characters that don't necessarily look like them. But you can really feel the love from people when they go, I saw myself in your work. This is the first piece of work I've done where it is spread across every demographic, every age group. And that is the thing I'm most proud of, because when we first sat down to speak to each other, we zoned in on the idea of how do we make a Western for people who don't love Westerns? How do we make something that colors outside of the lines of those tropes of machismo and revenge and the West in that way that is typical? And what we zoned in on was family. The work-life balance. Like, we all understand what it is to be, whether it's dysfunctional or functional, part of a family whereby, oh, daddy's away, mommy's away, are they coming back? When are they coming back? How do we feel when they are back? And so the elasticity, the drama in the show is built around this man and woman who love each other, set up in his first episode, and they keep on trying to find their way back to each other. That's the show. And that's relatable to anyone and everyone, regardless of whether you love the history or Western or whatever. And so the fact that many people who said, I don't like Westerns, but I like your show.
Yeah. So that was, so let me give a little bit of context, because he was responding to this, the fact that when he went out, that when he went out, okay. So the first thing he says is that for all his life, he had seen himself represented in movies and television, but not necessarily by people who looked like him. And that when he did this show, it was the exact opposite, that he was saying that everyone, old and young, from across the entire racial divide, saw themselves in his character. And that's kind of what he was getting at. What are your thoughts after seeing all that?
I've always said that representation is about who you are as a person. Skin color is probably the least interesting thing about anybody. You know, it's about, you know, who you are as an individual, who you are at your core. Um, you know, I grew up in an area, you know, you're probably familiar with the South Bay and the LA area. And I mean, just every race that you can imagine, you know, you
Mhm.
see all the different colors of the rainbow. But you know, my friends, I had an eclectic group of friends from everywhere. And it wasn't about what color skin we were. It was about, you know, what we liked. You know, we all liked the nerdy, you know, geeky stuff. You know, that's the stuff that we, you know, all came together around. So it really doesn't matter. I was represented by people that liked that. Like that represents who I am, you know, in other words. I'm not represented by a skin color, you know, and to me, it's a really reductionist argument because it kind of makes it seem like the only people that you can rock with are people that look like you
Mhm.
instead of people who are really like, you know, compare or resonate to you on a really, you know, like deeper level. You know, it's like we're all skins, you know, skin colors. And so I don't believe that. And I don't think people really believe that in real life. I think that's just an easy, you know, kind of talking point that people like to say, well, you know, you got to see yourself in order to, you know, feel included in this thing. Like he just said, he was represented by, you know, people that like westerns saw, hey, this guy represents, you know, a western, and it's just because he's a good character. Really doesn't have anything to do with his skin color. It just has to do with the fact that he's a good character, you know, and that's what you want. You don't care about skin color at that point. You know, I know then what was it? It was I think Wizards of the Coast that came out with these black Aragorn cards for Lord of the Rings where they race swapped
Mhm.
Aragorn. And, you know, there was a video of this guy, you know, weeping, saying, oh, I finally am represented by, you know, I see myself in Aragorn now because he's black. And it was like, well, did you see like the other values of Aragorn? Like that's the stuff that we should be comparing ourselves to, not his skin color, but his values of who he is as an individual person. That's what matters, not, you know, this surface level stuff here. This is irrelevant, in my opinion. And it seems like the people that want to kind of put you in a box and say, nope, you're a skin color. Like these are the people when they say everybody else is racist, these are the real racists because they see skin color first before they see anything else. They see skin
Mhm.
color. And that's what a racist does. A racist is looking at you on your surface and they're saying, no, you are this. And this is therefore, and then now they've categorized you and put you in a box. And it's like, no, I'm deeper than that.
Mhm.
I'm a deeper person than that. That's not who I am. I'm not just merely a skin color. I'm different than what you may think or whatever. So I think that's one of the major issues when
Yeah.
every time I hear this conversation about representation, it kind of, I listen, but then I'm like, yeah, but see, you're already starting to put people in boxes and saying, well, I need to view myself in order to identify with this character on the screen or this character in this television show. And I'm like, I identified with, you know, characters that looked nothing like me when I was growing up,
Yeah.
nothing like me, but I
Well, what do you
identified with who they were.
what do you think about his point though? His point was that the representation wasn't his skin color.
Uh-huh.
Because you know that was his experience his whole life watching white people, but being able to relate to their stories, and that the story of Bass Reeves was about a man who was a U.S. Marshal, and every day he would go out and risk his life to capture, what's it, deserters and runaways and criminals,
Sure.
coming and come back, and you know it's the story of the cop who, you know, you never know that when you step out that door if you're ever going to come back, and
Right.
that he kind of that's the story that he thought of Bass Reeves was, you know, he was in this family, a loving wife and his two children, and
Uh-huh.
that we as an audience can relate to this idea of just going out and not knowing if you're coming back and then finally coming back. And to
Yeah.
me, it's not about representation. Is not about what the person looks like.
Right.
Representation is about the lived experience of that person. That
Right.
I can relate to this idea of family, of love, of work, of duty, and then and come back. And that's the one thing about Bass Reeves you see is that the thing that Bass Reeves is criticized the most about in this show is the fact that he would choose to represent the law in a country that once treated him as a slave, and
Yeah,
that there
that the
was a
values, just like you just hit it. It's the
Mhm.
values that you represent. It's not what it's who you are. Again, it sounds like, again, not seeing the show, but it sounds like he had a certain set of values that were important to him. And now, because he's exploring those values or showing those values in this show, other people, regardless of what race or skin tone they happen to be, are resonating and seeing, hey, I feel represented by this guy because he thinks the way I think. That's the kind of representation that matters. You know, when you see, oh, okay, this guy is thinking the way I think, it goes across all color barriers, all racial backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, because again, that's how human beings relate to each other. By what do we value? What do we care about? What's important to us? Is family important to us? Duty, a sense of honor and commitment to one's cause. That's what matters. It's not, oh, I'm this color, that color, and so therefore I must, you know, I see myself through somebody that, you know, believes in, you know, honesty, somebody that believes in loyalty. I see myself in that, and it doesn't matter who that person, you know, woman, man, it doesn't matter. If you're a loyal, honorable person, I see myself in that. And if I see a story representing that, I'm going to see that. That's me. That's me. That's how I am. You know, like there's look real quick.
No, let me just. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
No, you're about to point out something. So go ahead.
Well, I was saying like this character right here, All Might. Okay,
All Might.
I don't know if I'm pointing to him correctly, but All Might is a character in My Hero Academia, and immediately he became my favorite character, and the reason is because his whole story is about what it means to be a hero. Okay, that's what his kind of his story, his values, and he's showing these values to these students. What does it mean to be a hero? And to me, that's like, those are the things that I connect with. You know, when you're a father and you're trying to be a hero to your children, or you're trying to stand up for the right things, like that's what matters, man. It's not about skin color. It's not about, you know, DEI and all that crap. It's about, what do you mean? Who are you as a person? That's what matters. And I wish Hollywood understood that, but they don't. And that's why we get a lot of shitty content, because they don't get it. They think about, oh, it's about, you know, my skin color and I'm a woman and I'm a, you know, LGBTQ. It's like, none of that matters. It's about who you are as a person. And so if this guy's talking that same language, I'm rocking with this show. I love it. I love it already. I haven't even seen it, and I love it because it sounds like something I would rock with.
Yeah, I was saying that the movie The Holdovers. You know, my daughter is like every Gen Z. She's not exactly into movies. She's only into movies because of me. And so, you know, I kind of have to curate the movies I force her to see. And with Holdovers, it's like, I need you to see Holdovers. And the thing she told me afterwards was the fact that was the idea that she identified so much with the Paul Giamatti character in that movie, because he was the misfit. He was the misunderstood misfit who was persecuted for just being who he was, and that she saw herself in that character. And she looks nothing like Paul Giamatti, thank God.
Right, obviously.
And the other thing, I'll say this also, the most Asian TV show, in terms of the TV show that represented Asian families, in my opinion, the best show that did that was Everybody Loves Raymond. Because the interactions between the mom and the son and the father is just like, oh, this could be almost any Asian family I know. You know, always trying to live up to the expectations of mom, to the point that you would just drop everything. You would throw your wife under the bus to keep mom happy. You know? And to me, that is representation. It's the fact that this experience is something that you can relate to. And it doesn't matter where you came from or what your skin color is. That's how you relate to people.
Bingo. Again, it's about the lived experiences. And when we see that, again, you can see it immediately. It stands out when you see something that you relate to, and that, you know, the show or maybe the character on the show holds some values that you hold. It stands out. And all of a sudden now it's like, hey, I rock with this because of who these characters are. And I feel exactly the way they feel. And I could care less about skin color. I don't care how old they are, how young they are. I relate to people that are younger than me, older than me, different races, different countries. It doesn't matter. It's, you know, again, when you find people that are, you know, true to who they are, and like I said, the honor and the loyalty, that's what I'm about. And so anytime I see anything like that, it doesn't matter who the character is or what the setting is, you know, I'm almost instantly in love with that project.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you know, I've mentioned this a lot. I've grown up watching white content, white movies and white TV shows, and damn it, they're pretty good. White people know how to tell stories. And and that's the most frustrating thing about where we're at today, is that the stories that we've told in the past, the reason why we know that they're good and why we relate to them, that idea is not being passed on to this next generation. And that's why this current, there's only a few people who know how to write stuff. We'll see what Terry Matalas does with Marvel, but it's a dying breed. And what DEI has done, it has taken these great storytellers who are old and said, hey, you're no longer needed. Why don't you just go retire? If you don't want to retire, we'll dig something up about you and get you fired.
Yeah, right.
Get you canceled. Disney, if you read the last D-Files with Wish was meant to honor Walt Disney and his legacy. The problem was when Wish was being created, they had gotten rid of all the old white guys, all the guys who knew the traditions of Disney. They got rid of them. And so now they had to go and mine the past and figure out what made what was Disney magic, and they failed miserably at it when they had people employed there just years before who understood that. And that's the shame of where the industry is today.
Well, when you think about it from this standpoint too, is that the people that they want to put on the DEI filmmakers, the writers, the directors, and all of that, these guys, they're trying to put them on, but the content that they're making is so on the nose when it comes to a message that they can't possibly write a story that resonates with everyone. And to me, that's the real tragedy of all of this, is that these guys should be held to the same standard of writing good content. Hey, just good content across the board. I don't care what your skin color is. It has to fit with what it is that we're trying to do. No agendas. Just get the agenda out of the way. And, one of the things you said is the white writers, well, they don't have DEI to fall back on. They actually have to be good at their jobs. They actually have to write something that's compelling and interesting, and it grabs the audience by the throat, and it makes them think and care and cry. You actually have to do that kind of stuff in Hollywood in order to get it, and it doesn't matter. Anybody can do that. But when you get to lean on your DEI, I'm just going to lean over here on DEI and my race and my skin color and my sexuality or whatever. When you get to lean on that, you don't actually have to put yourself in the arena of being, hey, I got to fight it out with these other writers that don't have that luxury. If you're a white writer, you just literally have to be better than everybody else right now at this point in Hollywood. You literally just have to be that damn good in order to get on and for people to, pay attention to you. This screenplay is so good, I can't put it down. This is amazing. I can't wait to make it. You got to be that good versus these cats that are leaning on the racial message. It's oh, okay, you're the right skin color. You're the right.
You got to hire me because I'm white.
You got to hire me.
Black,
yeah, exactly. And it's imagine if those folks actually had to compete on the same level as the guy that doesn't have all of these, quote unquote handicaps, as they like to call them. If they didn't have to compete, if they actually had to compete with that, they would actually get better. They would actually write stories the way that stories need to be written. All the lost art of storytelling would come back because they would be forced to. But unfortunately, since they've given them a way out, because you fit the check boxes. All right, you checked all of these boxes. Perfect. Let's hire them. Bring them in. And it's that doesn't do anything for the stories, man.
Let me just say this. It's not that this is a white thing where white people have the monopoly on good storytelling. Right. It's just the fact that white people have been doing it longer for obvious reasons. There are minority, there are people of color, there are women, there are LGBT writers and creators who know how to do this. The problem is that Hollywood refuses to hire those people because they don't subscribe to the message, or they won't stand behind the message that the way that Hollywood and the system wants them to. And so the good writers are being minority writers are being suppressed in favor of people who are gung-ho for the message. And that's the shame of it all. The woman who wrote Megan, the killer doll, a Black woman.
Oh yeah.
And after watching Megan, I was like, why didn't she write She-Hulk? Because it had humor, it had horror in it, it had drama in it. I can only imagine what she could have done with She-Hulk.